another edition of the BlueWhite Tailgate Pawcast. Andrew Kalista, Frank Bodani, and Mike Gross here. Guys, it is post-Blue-White game, and Penn State, clear as day, on their way to the national championship game. But first, we need to address something. Frank, we don't really hold the show up for you when you're joining us via telephone, but Mike Gross is so good-looking that we said, Mike, work out those tech problems and get on this show. Is that not what we said, Frank?
Kind of what we said. I was kind of like, well, what are we doing waiting for this guy? He's retired, but come on, special accommodations when it never happens for me. A little jealous, but
no connection to reality whatsoever.
Mike's got more experience than both of us combined, so I guess we should wait. Take that any way you want.
Oh, okay. God, that was much more diplomatic than your earlier attempt, Frank, which was frankly feeble.
What is definitely 100% accurate is if you combine my hair and Mike's hair, it does not equal the Frank Bodani hair, and James Franklin would testify to that.
I'm tired of talking about hair. I can't hate enough with the hair.
Let's talk a little bit about Blue-White. We'll get into the game a little bit later, but this one right off the top of the show, once again, James Franklin with a fan interaction getting national attention. Josh Pate had it. Josh Pate didn't like it. Guys, what's your reaction to this video that we're seeing on YouTube if you're joining us via YouTube to James Franklin with the confrontation in the fan in the north end zone?
I think James has a history of learning from these things, and it seems like he can't learn from this. It's hard for him to stop engaging with the fans, and I think he will eventually. And this might be the last straw. He'll stop doing this because I don't have a big problem. This whole idea of him like wanting to have a conversation with this guy, whoever the person is, I think that seems a little like mannered and forced to me. Although I think his heart's basically in the right place, but I think he'll learn from this. It doesn't do him any good and actually does him a little bit of bad to even bother. Just move on.
I think it looks worse than it probably is.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. It's not
because you know what? We're all used to this stuff. Most people are not writing about this other than national people, right? I don't think most of us obviously knew it even happened because we're trying to figure out even how to watch this thing in a construction zone when there's like 30-mile-an-hour winds going on up there, right? We're not looking at James Franklin engaging in with another fan. How many times is this? But I think you're right. I like when you're saying his heart's in the right place because I think he really does care so much that he can't help himself. And I think that there's something about wanting to talk to the fan, which I really think he does. Like he hears this and he cares enough, but it just comes off from afar that he can't handle himself, that he just can't. I don't know if that's really what it's all about, but that's how it looks. And I think it looks petty. And I think he just got
apparently the fan who, when James offered to talk to him, apparently the fan walked away. Think how differently this would be perceived if the fan had walked down and talked to him and they had a little 2-3 minute conversation and they ended up hugging and then it would be the perception of it would be entirely different.
Absolutely. But the thing is, the fans never do this with him.
Yeah.
They all run away or they shut up.
I think James thinks that's what's going to happen.
Right.
And it's not what's going to happen.
We need to sit down and talk to James a little bit. Put our arms around him and say, James, come on, Jim. This isn't going to work in your favor. It's never going to work. Just be done with it.
The students stayed to confront him the 2 times it happened. I'm with you, Frank. I think it's petty. I think it's a bad look from afar. It says $80 million, thin skin, just let it go. There was a wise coach that once said, we want your money, but not your 2 cents. Well, James, you got all the money that you want, paycheck-wise, program-wise. You're getting your pick of assistants. You have the ears and the support behind you for whatever you need. Don't worry about little trifling things. And by the way, this is when we talked about Monica a couple weeks ago in security. That is what the fan at Michigan State called James Franklin walking through said James Franklin a fraud, and he was yelling it during that press conference. That's my take on the whole situation. But yeah, I think it's beneath them. You guys should come together. Come together, tell them. Get David Jones to give him a call. So somebody get David Jones and be like, I miss Dave on the beat because I think that Dave would have a great time writing some columns on this one. Am I right, Mike?
Yeah, I miss Dave on the beat too, and you know, I think he would have. I think Dave would have in his colorful way said about what we just said. You know.
All right, moving on. NFL draft. Tyler Warren, he was at Beaver Stadium, finally gets his Mackey Award in person. I always like that the actual award people came to actually give the award in front of fans instead of in the banquets. Nobody likes rubber circuit chicken and everything.
Yeah, I didn't think of that, but you're right. That's pretty cool.
I love that. That was a cool moment for me. But NFL draft, Abdul Carter goes to the New York Giants, first round, third pick. Tyler Warren, Indianapolis Colts, second tight end off the board. He was probably like jumping for joy when the Bears did pick him because, you know, that's where, you know, careers go to die in Chicago on the offensive side of the ball. First round, 14th pick to the Colts. Kevin Winston Jr., defensive back, Tennessee Titans, third round, 82nd. Jalen Reed. This was kind of surprising to me. Texans, sixth round at 187. And Kobe King, Minnesota Vikings, sixth round, 201st. Guys, I'm a little bit shocked that there's that large of a gap between Kevin Winston and Jalen Reed.
Yeah, because I don't think they're that much different of players, possibly, right? I mean, I think they worked well together, but you look at their size, they're almost the same size player. I think their strengths are similar in that they're really good downhill tacklers that can play up and want to play up in the box if they need to be. And Jalen Reed certainly proved he could be a playmaker in the back. I mean, look at the turnovers he made, not just that he made, but at what times he made them. If he just could have made, I guess, that last tackle in the Orange Bowl. But okay. Anyway, I was surprised at that, and also that somebody did not pick just one other Penn State guy in the 6th or 7th round. I mean, the 5 guys who we knew would go went, but between Keziah Azard and Devontae Thomas and Kimber and like 5 other guys, I'm surprised nobody picked somebody in the 6th or 7th. But
well, I mean, to me, Winston is a little bit more of a classic NFL safety than Reed is. I think Reed is still this guy who's sort of a hybrid, and does he have the wherewithal playing the pass? I don't know. Maybe not. But, you know, I saw a thing today that I thought was interesting. This is something like the 8th year in a row that Penn State has had at least 5 guys picked in the draft. And the only other 2 teams to have done that are, I think it was Georgia and Alabama. Pretty strong.
I think Ohio State had 5 guys in the first,
Ohio State. Yeah, that's a little different. Yeah,
but that's where Penn State could be next year at this thing.
Yeah.
You know, they right now, I count 11 guys that are not like this. That 11 guys that could be almost. You hate to see definite NFL draft picks, but they could break their record next year.
Well, you took me where I was going, Frank. You took away my segue. I was going to tell the listeners, check out Frank's column this week on YDR.com. Frank, you got them pushing the Penn State record, 10 draft picks of 1996, possibly next year.
Yeah, I mean, and we say the record meaning in a 7-round draft.
11-round draft, yeah.
Is what? The draft used to be 30, 40, 50 rounds at one point. So anyway, but yeah, I think they do, and I think it shows Penn State's ability to invest in the guys on their roster and bring them back. And I think these aren't transfers; these are guys that most of them have been there their whole careers, most. And I think it's also, we all know Drew Aller. Where is he going to go? The 2 running backs, but someone like A.J. Harris could definitely. Maybe will leave early next year if he has the kind of season that he could. And I think he's a guy that maybe sometimes people forget because they have a couple of those guys, him and Venga in particular, that could leave early that they have really good years, that could be the tipping point type of thing, I think, for this.
Yeah, I saw what you said there, Frank, and I just was scribbling down, and I could easily come up with 10. I'm counting AJ Harris. I'm counting a, a few offensive linemen, possibly. Um, and Zane Durant and Dennis Sutton, the running backs, Drew Aller, et cetera, et cetera. Possibly one of these wideouts. Yeah, that's
I didn't even count the wideouts in my list, in my story. I didn't even go with the transfer wideouts, and now they got 3 of them.
Yeah.
Right, but that could happen.
Yeah.
Depending. That's the big question, right? Are 3 transfer wideouts going to be the 3 starters on opening day for Penn State?
I think there's a pretty good chance. Be my guess. There's a pretty good chance, right?
Yes.
On YouTube right now, if you're watching, if you're listening on one of the Spotify's, Apple, Amazon podcast, Blue White Tailgate Podcast, reach on out to us at bluewhitetailgatepodcast@gmail.com. The video playing right now is Penn State's first completion to a wide receiver in the view of the public since the Fiesta Bowl. Enjoy it. It happened in the Blue-White game. A wide receiver caught a pass. Blue Band was pumped for that one. Spring ball. Moving on from the NFL draft, spring ball. What did we learn from this Blue-White game? We've talked, who's going to hit the transfer portal after, leading up to it. But, what did we actually see on the field that you guys liked to give you confidence going into the offseason?
Well, I'm not sure if it was performance in the Blue-White game, but I do think that the 3 wide receivers that are transfers, and as Frank alluded, now one of those guys, his transfer was announced on the day of the Blue-White game, so obviously he wasn't available. But those 3 guys, I mean, they really have, remember all last season, James Franklin was telling us, I think our wide receivers are really improved, and they've improved so much. I wish you guys would write more about it. And he certainly has not behaved since then like he believes the wide receivers were all that improved, because even I've got 3 new ones. There was a couple of guys that I was struck with that I almost never heard of before, who I thought played pretty well. And the one guy, and Andrew, you mentioned it, Quentin Martin, I thought, given the fact that, he was hurt as of like a week ago, as far as we knew, I thought he showed a lot of bounce and quickness and looked pretty good. Obviously, the Blue-White game takes not a grain of salt, a boulder of salt, but it is what it is.
Right. I mean, and I think there's certain things you can glean depending on the situation. And to me, I'll start with defense, because a couple of younger guys, I think, proved or solidified their ratings and rankings and promise. And that's true freshman Darius Dixon, the cornerback from California, who not only played well in the past, but delivered one of the best in-person hits I think I've ever witnessed. And I think I would be wrong not to credit the guy, Josiah Brown, who actually held onto the football somehow. But that hit, which was legal, was astounding. I mean, that was by a cornerback and a freshman. And I don't think it matters to me that it's a scrimmage. And I think that's because he's one of their highest ranked guys in their class. And whether he plays in a stacked position or not, I think he looks like, wow, they really hit on him. They got him. And he might push the rest of that room by the second month of the year, if not before. And also Vabu Toure, who's a redshirt freshman safety, I thought played really well. And coincidentally, Penn State's looking at his older brother as a incoming linebacker transfer. But and then Anthony Specca on defense too. I don't think he came out. And I think, we've heard good things about him. I think he showed that he's ready to play the position. And he's, as a little sidelight, I think a pretty good interview. He looks confident with the media. That says something, right?
We like to hear that.
He was down in the far locker, as the Penn State likes to put him in there. Darius Dixon, Frank, I'm with you. What do you got? He didn't have just one big hit. I mean, he had the monster hit, but he had, I thought, 3 pretty good quality hits, and then he had, the pass breakup as well.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, I think his skills are legit, and I think he gets a pass by somehow, like recruiting wise. I mean, a lot of so much publicity for, say, like LeVar Arrington II, which is fine. I get it. And I think he showed his skills as well. But because Dixon's from California, he plays cornerback, they're not looking like we have to have a freshman cornerback. I think people forget about him, or maybe how good he is. But I think that's big. I think that's the kind of thing I think you can get from a scrimmage game. Whereas Penn State needs to find their backup quarterback and their number 3 running back. I don't always know that's, I mean, I know that both backup quarterbacks apparently played kind of well, but I'm not sure I could tell you sitting here who's ahead or who's better, or, I mean, but I don't know what your thoughts are on the backup quarterback, but
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the legitimate battles of the preseason camp. I think those two are very close, and Franklin suggested that whoever wins that battle might play a little bit, even if Aller's healthy. I don't know about that, but it's possible. So that's But as far as what we saw at the blue-white game, I thought they both looked pretty good. I thought they both look like they know what they're doing, but as far as picking one or the other.
Yeah. I think Grunkemeyer has better, to me, he looks like he had maybe better quarterback throwing skills, stronger arm, though there's something about Jackson Smolek's, maybe his instincts. I like the way he ran. He might just be maybe a little bit, he might be kind of a surprise kind of playmaker, but to me, Grunkemeyer, would be maybe number 2. But as you saw, Drew Aller's first season at Penn State, first game of his career, he wasn't expecting to play at Purdue. He had to play at Purdue. You never know if one of these guys will be playing early in the season or not.
You talk about James Franklin all last year. I specifically remember after the Boise State game sitting up in Pagula in that media room because the construction was going on at Beaver Stadium. The press box was just imploded that day. And he was talking about the wide receivers not getting the stories written about them, and they're doing great and paraded out. I forget what wide receiver was brought into the room to speak, but he's not there anymore. He hit the portal. And it brings me back to when I think Penn State under James Franklin turned the corner. It was out in Indianapolis. James Franklin said, I've talked enough about the offensive line when the offensive lines were struggling. I'm not going to talk about them anymore. It's time they go out and prove it. And Penn State was very good that year along the offensive line. And it's almost like when James Franklin is telling us how good somebody's playing and what they're doing, they're just struggling. And that's like, you could kind of put patterns together, and there's his coach speak. So with all that being said, here's James Franklin on what he likes or what he sees from his wide receiver room through the blue-white game and spring ball.
I was pleased with what we did this spring in the passing game. I was pleased with the wide receivers, not only the receivers that have been on our roster and their development. I think you guys saw Tyseer make some plays today, which was great too. But then obviously you guys really got your first look at Hudson and Ross. And both of those guys we think have very, very bright futures. But we're going to need competition throughout the entire room.
So how much stock do we put in that? I guess we shall see. But guys, I was really impressed with the wide receivers in the way they were able to play. Hudson, Ross, just seeing them run across the field, seeing them look really fluid, get separation from some quality DBs that Penn State had. And Ross was back to return a punt, so I also like that.
Penn State, the blue team, this is a cautionary note, except relax, it's the blue-white game. But I thought the blue team had Penn State's, by my reckoning, their best 7 offensive linemen were all on the blue team. And yet they had one drive in the whole game. Well, that one drive included several passes from Drew Aller to a little bit down stretch of the field, a little bit. I mean, not 60-yarders, but to these transfer wideouts, to Ross and Hudson. So, I mean, I guess you'd say that was kind of encouraging. That was like a 10-minute drive. But yeah, I mean, I think the the big hope for Penn State fans, I think, rests in getting better at that position group.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't sound like they got anybody that we know of injured. And I think it was good to see Denai Dennis Sutton moving well coming off the field to kind of verify that, yeah, he didn't really practice because he has something. At least he looks like he's moving well. So, I mean, those are good things coming out of spring because that's, you got 3-4 months of more behind the scenes work, right? Before we get to meet everybody again in a meaningful situation. So
I hope they have 3 or 4 months of very productive behind the scene work in creating a makeshift press box for the 26th season because
I think we've got to be in one of those suites. There's no more excuses, right? We deserve that.
By the picture from Rodney Martin on Instagram, it looked like they were on the third level, I believe, and it looked like there was some construction going on in there because I saw some wood and everything else. So I think the president's box is going to be shrunk, and that will become the media room. That's where my gut tells me people are going to be placed. I mean, that would be a kind of a smart decision, but we shall see going forward. Frank, you mentioned Anthony Specca. I didn't get over to his stall where he was talking, but I was listening out of my right ear and was able to hear some of the things. And I agree that he's a pretty good interview. I was down talking a lot to Dom DeLuca, and on a later show, we'll bring up about that, what we've talked about. Starter, come off the bench as a spark. So we'll have Dom DeLuca on that. But James Franklin didn't hide anything. And we're going to talk a little bit about the portal coming up here, but James Franklin didn't hide anything about diving into the portal to get a linebacker. Here's James Franklin.
But I think we're in good shape, but there's some concerns there. As you guys know, we're not a big portal team, but we're going to have to address some issues. So if there is a linebacker out there that wants to come and be a part of our program and play for LBU, the most historic linebacker program in the history of college football, there's an opportunity here to join the room and compete.
Or James Franklin talking about LBU and the linebacker play that's been at Penn State for a long, long time, even referencing, I thought, going back well before James Franklin. So a lot of the blue hairs out there could, give a tip of the cap right there. I thought that was a nice touch by James. They have to get one, right? This is a must get. Penn State must get a linebacker because Kobe King off to the NFL. I think we could make a case that he may have made a mistake based on where he was picked. Would like to have that thumper back, but they got to get one. Am I correct?
You are correct, and I named a couple of guys. I wrote about this for the next day, and I named a couple of guys. One of whom was that linebacker from North Carolina, who's in the portal, whose name escapes me at the moment. But then I heard or read that they are engaged with him, and he would be probably a guy who could help them. But yeah, we'll see. There's some linebackers in the portal.
It'd be interesting if both those guys, the guy from North Carolina and Vabu Tori's older brother, want to come. Do they take two linebackers? If those two want to and you could work it out, I don't think you can have too many. And you're not worried about mixing up the chemistry of hurting people's feelings in the room. I mean, this is your best shot. And if you think you need, and it's interesting to me because I think you can make a case that you should get yourself a starting defensive tackle and a starting edge rusher with experience as much as you need another linebacker, especially defensive tackle. I mean, I think would be huge if they could get someone with some experience. And we talked about this to go next to Zane Durant, who's more of a sure thing, who's not coming off an injury and everything else. But hey, if you can get one or two of these linebackers, go for it, go in. Penn State continues to invest in ways that, again, we haven't seen in the past. I don't think in years past, 5 years ago, they don't go and get Trevor Pena and another linebacker at this point. I just don't. Maybe, they fortuned themselves in the Chop Robinson, but to me, this is different. This is like we have our team. we want to keep making it better at all costs.
Yeah, this is real free agency. It's just like we're the Yankees, and that's
Well, why not?
I agree.
He said about messing up the chemistry, and part of me is saying like, this isn't everybody gets a trophy now, and this is what the kids wanted. This is business, and we're going to talk about the 105 scholarship limit and James not liking it, and I understand that all for that, but enough with what's different here than it is over there. Referring to Ohio State or whatever program you want to say. This is business. You're putting $700 million into a stadium. You're going out and you're getting a defensive coordinator. Could say all this fluff all you want. It's business. Go out and get who you want. If you could get them, don't worry about who's in the room.
Well, of course you're right, but there remains an element of the way Penn State perceives itself that is, we do this the right way, and the grand experiment thing, and you can say that it's a load of crap. And I think maybe James is thinking a little bit differently right now because they are clearly so close. I mean, it's the equivalent of a pro team that's trying to win now as opposed to building for the future. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Frank. Go ahead.
No, interrupt that. No, it's just, I mean, they are one play away last year. And they almost went to the national title game without a wide receiver catching a pass. I don't know how much closer you can be. And this is like they have all these things. I'll have to say the word aligned. We love it. Okay. So they have support, but they also have an interesting roster situation that they may have this much talent in the future for sure, but I don't know if they're going to have the exact same dynamic of talent that they will ever have again necessarily with the guys who are coming back and what those guys are like two running backs like this coming back at the same time, having things just fit into place. So you go out and you use the rules and you get everything you can. And I like the feel of it. And I think fans will like the feel of this because I think people have been frustrated, if you're a Penn State follower, for why can't this program do a little more? Why can't we be a little more like and take advantage of what schools like Ohio State are doing? Why can't we be more like that? Well, they are like that. I think right now there may not be another roster. They don't have like a roster full of Saquon Barkleys, but I'm not sure there's another roster right now in college football that has a combination of talent, depth, and experience that's better than Penn State. And I don't know if you could ever say that in another season.
And I think the other thing is they're set on the offensive side of the ball. Mm-hmm. At half of the game, they're set now on offense, right? So it really narrows the focus on a couple of specific positions on the defensive side where they have been certainly among the top, let's say, 5 in the country defensively.
You're right. And they just went and paid the best defensive coordinator in the country to go run it. This has never happened before at Penn State.
We're really close. We're really close in terms of the approach and in terms of the perception and maybe in terms of the reality on the field.
Right.
Did the Yankees hesitate to go out and get Reggie Jackson?
No, but that was 40 years ago.
I'm just look at me showing the depth. Different sport, different decades. He's the one that stirs the drink. If you have a chance to go out and get a linebacker or defensive tackle that could stir the drink, you go out and get it. Doesn't matter what your captain at catcher thinks.
Right. You remember what team he came from? Who did he play for the year before he became a New York Yankee? The Baltimore Orioles, one season in Baltimore. Okay, he did not really fit the Oriole way, and that's fine. They did things their own way. He had a good year, but he never fit that. People forget he even was an Oriole.
I forgot he was an Oriole.
Perfectly fit the Yankee way. And I think this is Penn State football. This is a little new, but I kind of like the feel of how they're going about doing this. I think they can make that transition and keep who they are and be successful with the way they're doing this. I don't think it doesn't feel awkward to me what Penn State is doing to take the next step. Even though some of it's different, it doesn't feel weird. It doesn't feel, it feels okay. I mean, I think they're doing everything they can, and it feels right. And to me, there's no reason why they cannot be Michigan, Ohio State, and now Penn State.
So to carry Andrew's superb analogy all the way through, the Penn State is not the Orioles.
Well, there's some similarities to that, but
right, they're playing in the Yankees.
They are
Yankees sandbox then.
Yeah, in the way they can. And I think some of it's a little understated. Trevor Pena isn't like, he's not like the guy. It's not like they went out and got the guy from Ohio State or something. But to what they need, he's huge. To what they need.
I mean, the linebacker is not going to be Reggie Jackson.
No.
Reggie Jackson either. It's the need. You're right.
It's just the need. You got it. You know, I was going to make an A-Rod Jeter, Derek Jeter and A-Rod. You had a chance to get A-Rod. You bump one over to third base, or what was it? Alfonso Soriano. Yeah, you're going to move out to the outfield.
But that's not what this is. This is
that's not what this is.
With the baseball.
Yes. And I'm not putting Penn State in that category of the $20 million roster at Ohio State to go out there and build something like that. I don't want that to be construed with the Reggie Jackson and the Yankees. I just always like that Reggie Jackson said he was the straw that stirred the drink. So if you have a chance to go out there and get somebody that's going to stir your drink to put you into the national championship game and get you over a hump, then you go out and do it, because as Frank said, there's never been a roster for you, at least on the offensive side of the ball, to get it done. And Frank, I was looking down when you were talking because I kind of didn't believe that he was an Oriole. I wanted to fact check that. And yes, he was an Oriole. So
I saw him play. I used to go to Oriole games as a kid. I'm old enough, man. I remember.
I completely forgot he was an Oriole, that I had to actually see that career list right there with my own eyes. So what is next for Penn State besides temporary seating and more construction and escalators being put in? Beaver Stadium, it just looked different. I personally, I don't know if I could sit in the temporary seats the way that just looks right now. I have a hard time getting over a fear of heights right there for me. But what's next in general for the football team? Where would they go from here? Before, as James Franklin said, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done before Nevada.
I think we've already talked about the transfer portal. Certainly they're working that right now. And then the summer is a time when the quarterback can build relationships with his wide receivers, kind of throwing and catching on their own. And that's going to be at a premium because obviously we have 3 new dudes and a veteran quarterback. So, I mean, that's going to be part of it, but that's just the normal part of this part of the calendar. So that might there might be a little more focus on that just because those 3 wideouts, I think a lot is expected of them.
Absolutely. So to me, number one is the relationship and connection between Drew Aller and those 3 transfer receivers, because, so you go back last year, this Trey Wallace and Amari Evans are talented players, right? But were they really, really good receivers for that type of a team going for a national title? No way, because they didn't make the plays when you need to make the plays. So if Drew, who has all the talent in the world, can develop a better relationship with these 3 new receivers who don't have to be the next coming of Chris Godwin, they need to be reliable and they need to be able to make some plays in the clutch. That would be huge. That could take that team to a level where you're good luck trying to beat him if they can do that. If he can develop that relationship with these 3 guys, when we saw it, it wasn't quite the same, but in 2005, when Michael Robinson was the new quarterback working with new receivers, all those new receivers, we didn't know what the heck Penn State was getting. It took him a little longer in the middle of the beginning of the season to do it, but he developed it. And all of a sudden, Penn State went from the biggest question mark in the country to an offense that was hard to beat because of the relationship that Michael Robinson developed with Derek Williams, Deion Butler, and Jordan Norwood. And this is similar. 3 new guys, right? 3 new guys with a talented quarterback could mean all the difference. And they have 3 games to warm it up, kind of like the 05 team did. So,
and then a week off. Right?
Yes, then a week off. And then Oregon, not at Oregon, but Oregon at home.
Frank, you just gave me an idea for a podcast guest. Terrell Golden, wide receiver on that team. Number 4.
Not Deion Butler, not Jordan Norwood, not Derek Williams?
Well, D-Will's having a problem answering his phone for me, so we're just going to throw that one out there. Well, yeah, Terrell, I can try to get.
He was the forgotten receiver on the 05 team.
And because you didn't mention him, that's why I thought, like, good podcast guest because of everything. He made a big catch that year, too. And made a big one for Morelli, I think, the following season down at the goal line. But it was awesome on special teams. He was underrated.
Terrell Golden, I think, had a nice catch. I could be wrong at Michigan, didn't he? On the drive where they actually went to take the lead.
Yes,
at the end of the game.
Yes. You guys are really going back into the recess.
Yeah, because he had a number change in Penn State too. So we'll look
it up. Reggie Jackson and the Orioles. Okay, look it up.
We're gonna get him on. One point I want to make, and this will be the last point that I make before you guys could say your goodbye pleasantries. You guys talked offensive and what Penn State's going to do going from here. I'm interested to see, and I want to hear these stories coming into next season, how much work the defensive backs are doing in the film room with Jim Knowles to get this system down and to recognize situations that he's going to want to put them through. I don't understand what the NCAA rules are on meeting in the offseason because they're always changing. You could do analysts, you could do this, you could do that. But I'm interested to hear the story because it's always about receivers and out throwing and linemen doing extra work and how stronger we get in the offseason. I want to hear the stories about how much film work was put in on the defensive side of the ball. So these guys, they're not thinking out there in the first year in a system with a new defensive coordinator that they're going to be reacting and they are going to be able to read each other and react instantaneously on the defensive side of the ball in the back 5.
Okay, I'll buy that. I'm not clear on what they can do in the summer. There's more. They're allowed to do more coaching than they were a couple of years ago. Those rules have changed a little bit, but how much of it is film? How much of it is on the field? How much of it is hands-on with Knowles and analysts? I honestly don't know that. Maybe I should, and I don't. I think with the receivers, I think we all believe that these 3 guys, these 3 transfers, can catch the ball. Their ball skills are fine. It's having a connection with Drew Aller where you can run routes and get open and get separation. That's the thing. And I think you can work on that in the summer. I'm not sure what the equivalent of that is for D-backs other than there is some ball skill element to it. I don't know. I think they're in good shape on that end. I think they're in better shape on that end than we would have thought a couple of months ago. And some of the freshmen and Elliot Washington, who's apparently the greatest practice player in the history of sports. So yeah, we'll see.
Here's a thing. I mean, Penn State has not been known for their cornerbacks ever.
Right.
They could very well have the best cornerback room in the country, and we're not. And I would not be. I don't think I'm exaggerating because no, the best. Look, AJ Harris could be a high draft pick next year. Yeah. Okay. Zion Tracy, we've seen his skills. Okay. Elliot Washington had some injury issues, but like Mike said, best practice player in the country. Okay. You bring in Darius Dixon, who we just witnessed in the game. We're not even talking about Davian Collins, who's pretty good. I mean, how many do you need? You only need 2 or 3 at a time. I think they have 5 legitimate guys back there, and I think they're experienced. This isn't kind of like talking as to what may happen. All those guys played kind of meaningful roles and did meaningful things last year, and they're all back. So to me, it's keeping that group together, building their confidence, physically keep improving it, because it's set up for them. Safety, yeah, a little more of an issue, plenty of talent, but cornerback, to me, that might be the position no one's talking about. Arguably the best position on the Penn State team.
Wow.
Right there you go.
Frank is bringing it.
You don't hear that one very often.
That's a good way to end it. You don't hear that one very often, like I'm crazy, but that's all right.
That's what we're about. That's what we deliver. The things that you don't hear very often.
That's exactly right.
Nobody thinks you're crazy. We all love you.
Okay, thank you.
You can love him and think he's crazy. That's
yes,
possible.
that's all right.
But we both love you and think you're not crazy.
Okay, thank you. Bless you.
All right, no better way to end it. Frank summed it up right there. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Blue White Tailgate Podcast. Lots of stuff coming up here in the off season, and we will bring it all to you across Penn State athletics world. Thank you very much. Have a good one, everyone.